Okay, I'm live. So this is going to be a kind of quick impromptu stream. Hopefully, well, it should be on live now, but the liveness of this all. I will post this up on Facebook and a couple other places later. So what I want to do is I'm in the middle of my Gouf custom bust piece, and here are the different pieces that I have that will go together, like. Hopefully I don't scratch the paint, but the idea is this will go together, and you'll see that I've already started painting this. So what I want to kind of go over is some basic airbrushing technique. So what I'm going to do is kind of explain what happened here first. So you see this darker blue here. This is a Finisher's metallic indigo that I use as a base color. Yes, I'm wasting a good paint for just as a base layer. I could have used just a regular dark blue, but this kind of fit what I was looking for. What I did was I base coated this over the primer layer. I've already painted some internals, metallics, and this is all masked off. So what I tend to do is I paint from lowest layers upward. So lower layer, paint, mask, paint the upper layer, paint, mask, so on and so forth. So there are actually a couple of layers of mask here that, once I get done painting the whole thing, this will come off. So after painting the primer, I painted the indigo, metallic indigo. Once that dried, I just used base white. So this is a generic white primer from Mr. Hobby as a shading element, and you'll notice that this is shaded pretty heavily, and there's a reason for that, because I'm going to go over this with the final color. So I don't really care that this is overly heavily shaded, because this will kind of diminish that heavy shade once I get that layer over. Now the technique here is similar to a color lift. So I'm using different colors. I'm not using strict black and white or a gray and white as the base shading, or I'm not using a base color, or a better way to explain this is I'm not using a two-layer method of shading. Basically, I'm not spraying just a darker color of my final color and using that as my shading method. So I'm using multiple colors here to create that shading effect. So I used a dark blue or indigo, and then I used the white as my shading. And then over this, I'm going to spray another dark blue that is lighter than this indigo. So you can see that my three parts here have been sprayed, and you can see how heavy the shading is, because once I get to actual spraying, this will change a little bit. So I'm going to swap over to hopefully you guys can still hear me once I swapped over to this camera. So I should have set this up earlier, but let me put my paint booth a little bit really quickly. Hopefully this won't drown out too much noise, but you're going to hear my compressor go off, and hopefully this microphone up here is working. So, famous last words, right? I'm going to turn on my compressor, so hopefully this doesn't get overly loud, and I'm going to try to talk over my compressor as well as over my fan. But the idea here is I have a dark blue paint. Let me put on my glove first. No glove, no love. So this is my paint I have here. This is paint actually from my WRX, or my previous WRX. And I got a replacement part I had to paint it, so this paint, I have a bunch of it left over. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this to paint with. Now again, if you can't hear me, maybe I'll do a voiceover, but hopefully the stupid microphone is working and you guys can hear me. I should actually look over at the live stream and see if you guys actually hear me. Or if it's, sounds like I'm over in the distance. So actually, let me go check. And hopefully, as I come back and forth. Okay, so hopefully you guys can hear me. So let's do this. So I'm gonna try not to F this up, and I'm gonna hopefully paint correctly. That's my paint out. I'm gonna go a little higher on my PSI, but what I'm going to do is I'm gonna lightly mist it first. So this will get a nice mist layer on there. I really want this higher PSI. And once I have this mist layer on there, I can spray a little heavier. And this paint sounds like it's a little on the thick side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit of a thinner to this. So let's use Mr. Color Thinner. And let's lighten this up a little bit so it sprays easier. Mix this up a little bit. And hopefully this will kind of do the trick. And my airbrush is doing a pretty high-pitched squeal right now because this paint is very, very heavy. So my distance I'm spraying is about here because I'm spraying at a higher pressure. And what I want is an even layer to this. You can see where the areas are, the shaded areas are starting to pick up. And it's not as stark as before. I generally don't like a heavily shaded look, but since this is a scale-wise, this is a much bigger kit. We'll see how that goes. You can see the comparison of this to the shaded part. You can see that comparison here. Hopefully I have my camera focused correctly on here. If I go, yeah, this is retarded. So I'm going to move the camera here so I can see a little bit better. Sorry about that. So you can see the comparison between this part and this, and you see the difference between the shade, the darkly shaded areas, and you see that took away some of the harsh shading. Let me check one thing also, just to make sure. I don't think this mic is turned on. Let's see here. There's a bloody settings thing. I'm trying to fix it so the mic is working correctly. Let's see here. At least I think the mic is working. It is when I get really damn close to the thing. See, I don't know how to swap it out here. All right. Well, so you're gonna have to deal with this. So hopefully I'm not screaming too loudly at you guys, but I'm gonna go ahead and finish painting this guy up. I want to make sure I have an even tone to all this. So this is pretty much done. I'm going to stick this in my dehydrator, and I'll bake that in. So this next part, same thing. Light misting coat all around it. And a heavier coat as I get the spraying. I expect my compressor to pop on any moment now, so you've been warned. Hopefully you can sort of hear me. If not, oh well. This was an impromptu broadcast like I always tend to do. So I'm trying to get this project ready for SCGMC 2019. So hence the kind of little bit of rushing. Now I'm going to hold this a little bit better. This is a fairly large piece of resin I'm working with. This is actually 3D printed, and it's a big chunk. So to be able to hold it with a skewer, it's kind of a little sucky. Now what I need to do in between is to check the tones. So I need to take a look at this, these two, and compare to. Airbrush layers are very, very thin. So this is going to end horribly. So you need to be able to take a look at it, and as it dries, the color kind of changes a little bit too. So you really need to make sure your tonal differences aren't that stark when you're painting. This is especially true if you are shading. Shading is one of those techniques that will really show some of those tonal differences if you're not doing it well. You need to just be careful and take the time to take a look at your parts as you're spraying to make sure that the tonal differences aren't too glaring. Unless you're absolutely perfect and OCD about this, you're going to get some slight tonal variances. That's why it's best to always build as a complete part, and then take the parts off the frame, and then paint the internal frame. But for something this size, it's a little bit more difficult to do. So this is done. I'm going to stick it in my dehydrator without rubbing against the other part that's in there. And I'm going to check the amount of paint. So I've lost a little, or running low on paint. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and thin this a little bit more. And I'm basically eyeballing this because I want the consistency to be about vitamin D milk. So it coats the sides and it slides down a little bit. As you paint more and more, you'll get used to kind of your consistency that works best for you. This paint was still a little too thick when I was spraying earlier. Hopefully, it's not as thick and it'll come out. One thing about metallics is there are particles in there that that make it all nice and metallic and shiny. Those particles tend to be huge when you're painting. So you're trying to push that stuff through an airbrush. And if you spray at a lower spray at a lower air pressure, you're gonna run into problems. So now when I'm spraying, I don't have that high pitched squeal. Oh, they're back. But I'm just going to go ahead and quickly spray this piece. It'd be awesome if this damn mic was working and it, really hear the stuff come through. So what I'm doing here is not, insanely detailed painting where I'm using very low pressure and spraying very closely. I'm spraying at a high pressure and spraying at a distance because I just want full coverage. I've done my detail under here with the shading. So hopefully you'll see that, the shading effects will be not too heavy as I add more and more coats of this Subaru World Rally Blue to this kit. I just want to make sure that I have enough coverage for all the areas. And that metallic shine looks really nice. It's a shame I'm going to flat coat the crap out of this. Otherwise, you're going to really get that, shine. Okay, so that's done. What I really should do is I need to make a comparison with this piece to make sure that it's close enough in tone. So that looks pretty close. Now again, your lower layers are going to affect this. So you should make sure that each layer, the tones are matched up properly. Every time I take this out of the dehydrator, there's a possibility of me screwing this up. So I'm going to shove this into my dehydrator, and that will be the end of this. Now I'm going to go swap over to the other camera and pretty much get to the end of the stream. So what I have here is, let me take my Michael Jackson glove off. I have the rest of the kit that's painted up. So this is the backpack piece. I also have the head painted in a dark color. So this is base coating this first. So what I'm going to do is over this, I'm going to spray the white. The problem is I need to finish cleaning up the power cables first. Because I'm worried about tonal differences if I spray these separately. I really want to have this connected up here and then spray this as a whole. Or I'm going to keep this on the side and make sure that when I spray the dark colors on here, it matches up here. So I want, give me a second, that damn compressor off. Oh, slight interruptions. So I have a couple of pieces that need fixing, like the backpack details, but these, and I need to fix the front glass pieces for the chest. But other than that, most of the kit is actually painted and ready for gluing together. Now, yeah. So a quick little broadcast, and just hopefully you guys, found this interesting or helpful. And I'll talk to you guys later. This was a nice, short, sweet, quick little thing. And have a good one, guys.